KRAS News Radio, WRVA, the voice of Virginia.
All right, it's 9:33 here on Richmond's Morning News, News Radio WRVA. This is the portion of the program we call the 933 experiment. So what do? I have no idea. We throw out the script. We just run out there for the world to see. We take your telephone calls. There's days where the phones are jammed. There's days where the text messages are jammed. But the most important thing is that you get an opportunity to make your voice heard. So I wanted to bring up something we've been talking about. I've been asking a lot of questions about is taxes, sales taxes. They're going to go up 1% if these different referendums are passed in November. Richmond, one city council meeting, boom. Let's go ahead and put it to the voters, and yes, we'll raise our sales taxes 1%. Powhatan, Chesterfield, they want to raise their sales taxes as well. Everybody's going to raise their sales taxes. By the time this is all said and done, because the General Assembly made it so much easier to raise your taxes, you don't have to go before the General Assembly and actually justify why you're raising your taxes. You just get to raise them yourself. Here in Richmond, they're going to raise the sales tax because they need to fund the school districts. RPS is $8.6 million short, so we're going to raise the sales tax and raise, I think, $45 million or something like that. I'll just ask you right now, yay or nay? Yay or nay on whether you think we should raise sales taxes? Everybody keeps talking about the cost of living. Everyone, every Republican, every Democrat, everybody keeps asking about and talking about, well, the cost of living is too high. Families struggle right now. So what are we going to do? Let's raise more taxes. There's a whole bunch of things that I've spoken about, but I want your reaction this morning. And I'll lay them out for you. I got a lot of people, the text message blowing up right now. I think it's going to be one of those days. I would like to hear from somebody. 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. That way you can get some context to what you're saying. 833-804-1140. How many of you were going to vote yes? How many of you are going to vote yes on raising the sales tax, Powhatan, Chesterfield, and in Richmond? So we've been talking about Richmond primarily because City Council last night approved that. My thoughts are this. If the schools are underfunded, the counties are overfunded, why are we spending money out of the state budget? $1.2 billion is what they came up with. That $200 million that you gave to people to continue their temporary COVID emergencies, Obamacare subsidies, why not take that money and spend it on the school districts so you don't have to raise the sales taxes? The money that you set aside for your little slush fund that you're going to use to fight back against the Trump administration on something that you think they might do in the future, maybe that money could go to the counties so they don't have to raise the sales taxes. Or everything else that you put out there. Can I point out one thing? General Assembly gave themselves a huge raise. And they made it easier for people to raise the sales taxes in the local municipalities. Wow. Big raise, more taxes. None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. And I'd like to know, and this is the third rail that we'll step on, but I'm not afraid. If Richmond Public Schools want more money, then I think you need to explain to the taxpayers that you're going to ask. And it's not just the people living in Richmond, because as they said last night, 45% of this money is going to come from people that don't live in Richmond and aren't residents of Richmond, but they come into Richmond to do business. Because remember, the sales tax is going to go out. You buy a car, you go shopping, everything you get in Richmond, you're going to pay this 1% sales tax that they're asking for everybody to pay. My big question for the school district is, why is your forecast off by so much? Has anybody asked that or demanded that of Richmond Public Schools? Why was your forecast off? And again, let's start at the governor's mansion. You took so long to get the budget. RPS decided we're going to put our budget to bed before the state's budget was final. Huh? So number one, you can look at the state. Why'd you take so long? You have 3 Democrats. Louise Lucas is holding this thing up, and you went, 30, 60 days without even having conversations? And because of your inability to pass a budget, now there's real world consequences, and that directly will come out of my pocket by you asking us for another 1% in sales taxes because of Louise Lucas, Don Scott, and Abigail Spanberger couldn't get together and get us a budget. And then there's the whole Richmond Public Schools. You assumed here's what you're going to get. You didn't get it, and now you're coming to everybody else for a bailout. Your forecast was so bad. Why is no one asking you a question about that or holding you accountable to that? You took this Richmond Public School and dumped it at everybody else's lap because you put together a budget without knowing how much you were going to get from the state and just assume this is what you're going to get. That's bad forecasting. And we've asked the superintendent to come on, but they didn't respond to my email. Go figure. Somebody needs to ask that question before you ask anybody for another dime of tax money. Why was your forecast off so much? And why did you put together your budget and put it to bed before you knew what the final budget from the state was? I'll ask you this. If you did that, if you had a business and you put together a budget without knowing what your revenues were going to be, how long would you have that business? How long would you be in business? How long would you have your job? Not very. But instead, now we're going to raise all of our sales taxes because you miscalculated what the forecast should be. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I'd love to hear from you. By the way, somebody just sent this text to me. I'll read this to you. T2T has helped here locally. Wife of Hanover firefighter Lieutenant Clark, who lost his life, paid off her mortgage. They're just good people. All right, let me go to Mike on line 1. Mike, welcome. You're on News Radio WRVA. Good morning. How are you doing, buddy? Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I lived in Oro Valley, so I know exactly where that is. In fact, my son Rigney's here. We're sending him back, I think, in a week and a half, so he finishes his final year at University of Arizona before he goes into the Marine Corps. So bear down. Thank you. Yep. Can I tell you what happens? It's fungible. So here's what happens. And this is the big scam of when lotteries go through. So you and I, Mike, vote for the lottery, and we're going to give the lottery says, hey, $100 million is going to go towards the schools. And you go, that's awesome, right? Sounds like a great idea. What happens in reality is the state legislatures look at that $100 million and go, okay, well, that means I could pull $100 million out because they're getting that money anyway. And now I can reduce the amount of money that I put into the budget every year towards education because they're making it up with that lottery money, so I don't have to spend it. So when they have the lottery, everybody sells it as $100 million goes towards education as if the spending was going to stay flat. Because if the spending just stayed flat, you added $100 million, that means you get more money for education. Everybody wins. But what they do is they take away the money at the base. They never keep it flat. And that money just becomes fungible. So instead of if you have a budget of $200 million, Now I've got 100 million. Well, that means I only have to give them another 100 million. I can take that 100 million, use it somewhere else. The money is fungible. It never is in addition to what I have been spending. It's in lieu of what I don't have to spend anymore. Well, that's why all this money is fungible. You give money. So let me ask you this: if you and I were hanging out together, and I gave you $100, I gave you five $20 bills, and you put it in one pocket, and then you took out three of those and you put them in the other pocket. How much money do you have in your pockets versus how much money do you have in the one pocket? It's all fungible. And that's the scam of the lottery. If you had a lottery where you required a state legislature, or in this case, a Commonwealth, to keep the funding at its current levels and not to depend on the lottery to help fund those current levels, then you'd actually have additional spending towards schools. But unfortunately, they don't. They just kind of decrease a little here, a little there, a little there. 10 years later, oh, we're still spending flat. We could just use that money now for your tax dollars, fungible, taken out of one pocket, using it for another pocket. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just all those tax dollars become fungible. I appreciate your call. Thank you so much. We're gonna have to catch up and talk about the desert. Thank you for the call. That opens up a phone line for you this morning, 833-804-1140. I haven't had anybody say, yeah, oh no, I do. I am voting yes. I live in Chesterfield. I pay over $30,000 a year in real estate taxes as well as personal property taxes, as long as the promise um, 2 cent. Actually, you went to 2 cents per $100 value in real estate taxes, 10 cents per 100 on personal property taxes are enacted as promised. If it wins, yes, it'll help. Okay, your text message is way too long. I get what you're saying. You're like, hey, listen, this helps me with my taxes and real estate taxes. I'll vote for it. Okay, there's one person that will. Everybody else has said, no way. I'm completely against raising sales taxes, especially since it won't benefit my children. They go to a private school. Has anyone ever thought if you decrease the taxes, which makes things more affordable, then a larger percentage of people will then flock to your area to do shopping? Therefore, you'll end up making more money in the long run. Well, that makes economic sense. If I have, okay, what they're saying is if I make things more expensive where I am, people will flock to the places where it's cheaper. I'll give you an example. We were just talking to Mike, he was from Arizona, California border. On one side of the border, gas is about $1.50 more a gallon in California because of taxes than you'll find in Arizona. So people from California will drive across the border and buy their gas in Arizona and then drive back to California. People never drive from Arizona into California to buy taxes. Why would you do that if it's $1.50 more? But here's, I guess, the thing that I just want to say. When's somebody going to respect the fact that I work hard for my money? And do you respect the fact that you're taking money from me? Listen, I get up every morning, 3:30, to come to work here, gladly. And every time I get my paycheck, money's taken out. Every time I go to the store, with that money that I work hard to earn every day, you add on a penny here, a penny there, but it adds up. When's the last time you felt respected as a taxpayer? That they weren't wasting your money? There's no waste, fraud, and abuse. That the city in the counties, in the Commonwealth, and the federal government are good stewards of your money. I don't mind paying taxes. I don't. But I just don't want to pay tax dollars that are then wasted on a pet project or waste, fraud, and abuse. That's what makes me upset. I don't want to pay extra taxes for mismanagement. And that's why I really want to know from the school district, how did you have your forecast off by so much? And the way they built the school district budget is, they don't look at what the revenues are. They just say, here's what I want, and then make it happen. It's planned in a way of, we need this, 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 and 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 this. And this is what it's going to cost. That's our budget. Now give me the money. It's not the other way around with, okay, here's how much money I'm going to get for the city. Here's how much money I'm going to get from the state. Here's all our revenue sources. We have this much money. Now we figure out how to spend that pie. That's not how the Richmond Public School District budget is put together. They come up with their master wish list of what they want and then tell everybody, here's how much money we need. Now come give me that money. Instead of, here's how much money, here's the pile of cash you're going to have. You figure out what you need to spend it on. Could you imagine if you ran your house that way? I want this TV, I want this couch, I need this recliner, I'm going to get this pool table, I want the swimming pool, and it's all going to cost this. Now just give me the money for it. Would you ever run your house that way? I would if I could, but my wife won't let me because she's the responsible one in our relationship. It's oh, somebody says, laugh out loud. You want respect from the politicians. Okay, sorry. Oh, somebody's yelling at me about how I pronounce words again, calling me names. I love the fact that when I'm onto something and you can't disagree with me, that you just call us names. That's why I know we're onto something. And by the way, if you want to know how much the show's growing every day, the amount of people that scream and yell at what we're saying gets bigger and bigger every day. That tells me on the left that people are paying attention and waking up, because this is the one place you can actually say what you've had on your mind for a long time. All right, that's going to do it for the program for today. Want to thank everybody for joining us today on the program. Again, golf tournament coming up, WRVA.com/golf to sign up. We're still looking for foursomes. And again, Veterans Fire Protection, thank you all very, very much for stepping up to be our title sponsors. You guys are tremendous. By the way, if you want to find out more about that company, it's vet-fire.com. All right, time for a national anthem brought to you by our friends from Freedom Services and Training, the built this little gun store in town located in Mechanicsville. Thank you very much for making all of this possible. All right, there's a reason we get up early every morning. Go to bed early, get up in the morning. For me, there's things that I think are important we stand up for. It's always going to be my family. The other is this great country that I'm so blessed to live in. That's why we get up every morning and bring you Richmond's Morning News. So from all of us here at Richmond's Morning News, thanks for making us a part of your morning. Don't forget, you can always find us online at Rich for America, Rich the number 4 America. You can email me that way, and on News Radio WRVA. That's also my social media handles for X, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. That's it for the show today. Break. See you tomorrow.
Please stand for the national anthem of the United States of America.